in the philosophical community, specifically the secular philosophical community, it would be strange to say that Thomas Aquinas is a great contribution to the philosophical community. Not because his ideas were strange, but because of his background. Thomas Aquinas was a medieval saint, and he dedicated his life to studying about God, faith, how angels moved and spoke. He dedicated his life to learning all of these things. But it is these very things that would make it very strange for a secular thinker to even consider acknowledging the contributions that Thomas Aquinas made. But the very things that would make Thomas Aquinas strange are also what make him great. In that Thomas Aquinas worked to reconcile the relationship that existed between religion, science, faith, and reason. It is these things that Thomas Aquinas worked for that make the world that we live in today such an open world for information, that makes information and knowledge open to everybody. Thomas Aquinas was born circa 1225, not 2025, 1225, in Rocca, Italy. He was the youngest of 8 siblings. At the age of 5, he went to the abbey in Monte Cassino, where he studied with the Benedictine monks. There he was described as a witty child and was given a good soul. He loved to learn. It was the fact that he loved to learn that made him such a prominent figure even at that age. He was known as always asking his teachers, what is God? Not who is God, but what is God? He wanted to know the deep things. So after his time at the abbey, he returned to Naples, Italy, where he finished his primary education at the Benedictine home. There he studied a lot of the works and a lot of the texts that were actually rediscovered, the Greek texts that were rediscovered, and one philosopher that he studied in particular was Aristotle. The philosophies of Thomas Aquinas are actually considered a modern version of the philosophies of Aristotle. Aristotle focused a lot on reason, and so did Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas's philosophies really focused on reason and who could have reason. One of the statements that we read in our book is, in our text for the class, is that Aristotle described that reason comes from this universally ultimate being. And what Thomas Aquinas did was he said this universal ultimate being is God. And he is the source of our reason. And it is because of this truth that Aquinas said that we have the philosophies that he created. Not created, but that he improved, or rather modernized. At that time period, the information centers of the world were located in Muslim areas, specifically in areas like Morocco and Egypt and Spain. These areas were information centers in the world because they were open to information, and not just information from their religion, but information from the entire world. But what was happening at that time was that religious leaders in the Muslim community were very zealous about keeping things sacred, and because of that, they were closing off information, and at that point, information from the outside world was being pushed away and shunned away and burned. And Thomas Aquinas was seeing this happen, and he said, I don't want this to happen. I don't want to see this happen in our community, because at the time, there was this idea in Christianity that said, if you want to know knowledge, you need to have a relationship with God, because God was the owner of all truth and knowledge. Because of this, Thomas Aquinas worked to try to reconcile that relationship with reason and faith. And what he determined was that in the world there are 2 laws that determine how people can learn, because he said, like he said, reason comes from God, and all people are created by God. So that means all people have reason. And you do not need to have a relationship with God to be able to use your reasoning to learn things. So what he said was that there are two kinds of laws: natural law and eternal law. Natural law is the law that is considered the secular law, in that you do not need to have a relationship with God or you don't need to know God in order to use your reason to learn the things that pertain to natural law. For example, working a field to grow crops, learning about the human body, learning about how to cook food. You don't need to know God in order to know how to cook an omelet. You don't need to know God in order to know how the human body works, and you don't need to know God in order to know how to work a field to grow crops. All of these things pertain to natural law. Now, eternal law all the things that pertain to eternal law are the things that are supernatural and that are considered miraculous, the way that God intervenes. But all of these things require faith. And Thomas Aquinas said that it requires a relationship with God, or it requires you to know God in order to know the things that pertain to eternal law. But one of the things that Thomas Aquinas, things that Thomas Aquinas is accredited for doing is creating a philosophy that allowed the modern world to create a space where information was open to everybody. When Thomas Aquinas died, he was canonized as a Roman Catholic saint, but not only that, but his philosophy was adopted as the official educational philosophy of the Roman Catholic Church and Roman Catholic education, as well as the fact that Thomas Aquinas was dubbed the patron saint of teachers. It is because of the fact that Thomas Aquinas's philosophies made it possible for all people to learn and for all people to gain knowledge, because he believed that we were all capable of reason. And our purpose was to use that reason to learn as much of the world as we could, and then anything beyond that, we needed faith. And that's where Thomas Aquinas stood. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I hope that you've taken away a lot of things that Thomas Aquinas did, and I hope that we as teachers can honor the legacy that Thomas Aquinas began in making information and knowledge available to everyone. Thank you.